All right, so welcome to Timely Topics. This one is on mimetic theory and the practice of scapegoating. So a little background. This is all based on kind of Professor René Girard. Passed away in 2015. Was a pretty influential 20th century thinker, longtime professor in the U.S., taught more like French literature, but was a Christian and kind of tied all these different things that he saw in kind of ancient literature and modern literature, myths, plays, everything, kind of saw some basic things. So he was eventually hailed somewhat ironically as the founder of a post-structuralist movement despite his Christian convictions. So all of his ideas known collectively as mimetic theory. It offers a transformative lens for understanding human behavior. So his influence spans criticism, anthropology, theology, philosophy, psychology, even modern entrepreneurship. His work is like lightning on a dark night, sudden, illuminating, unforgettable. So mimetic theory. So his basic simple insight is human desire is imitative. Drawing on authors like Cervantes, Shakespeare, Dostoevsky, he argued that we don't desire things independently, we desire what others desire. So this shared desire can lead to a rivalry over time, because multiple people are wanting the same things, or you're wanting what somebody else wants, and what often happens in the world is you take it. Well, they have it, I'm better than them, so why don't I have it? I might as well go take it. That can be stuff, that can be land, that can be spouses, all these things over time. So basically what happens is maybe a model person we once admired becomes an obstacle we must overcome, we must have for ourselves. So think of it this way. You don't really want a Ferrari or an iPhone. People, you desire it because somebody else has it, somebody else does. It doesn't, because it's innately something you want, everybody else wants it, so you think, I probably should want this too. And you think about the purchase of an iPhone. A lot of people, well, I need to get some kind of phone. I don't want to study all the stuff. Everybody seems to say iPhone, and Sue George will yell at me if I get something else. She wants an iPhone. I better want an iPhone too. Think about all the big trends. Stanley Cups. Stanley Cups have been around for years. It's like, but besides the hockey cup, Stanley Cups are like these insulated drinking giant mugs. They had these things back the 50s, these big metal ones. You'd get lead poisoning from them. But they became this fad about 2 years ago because some celebrities started drinking out of these giant Stanley Cups. So suddenly everybody has to have one. All the third and fourth graders at school have to have a Stanley Cup. My daughter had to have a Stanley Cup because everybody else had a Stanley Cup. They've been around for generations. It's not like they suddenly got better. In fact, they're kind of ridiculous. SNL did a whole spoof of them called Big Dumb Cup, where like you have to have this big dumb cup. It's so big you can't even put it in your book bag. But everybody else wants one. I must want one too. That's kind of the basic idea that Girard's coming up with. But he takes it further. What happens when many people desire the same thing? Rivalry escalates. Societies risk chaos. To prevent total breakdowns, groups often find a scapegoat, someone to blame and cast out, and restoring peace through collective violence. This is what Girard called the scapegoat mechanism. And he believed it lies at the foundation of culture itself. You go back and look at almost every culture, every religion, every society, they have some sort of scapegoat mechanism. Whether it's the virgin you have to sacrifice off the cliff to appease the volcano, whether it's the Jewish system of you actually had an actual goat. You put the sins of that goat, you cast it off into the wilderness. Something is sacrificing for the good of everybody else. So back to mimetic desire. So mimetic desire is desired by imitation. It begins innocently enough, modeling ourselves on something we admire, someone we admire. But it often leads to mimetic rivalry as both parties begin to want the same exclusive thing. Example, I just rewatched the whole Ted Lasso series. Anybody watch Ted Lasso? So if you watch Ted Lasso, Nate, who's the kit man, kind of models after Ted Lasso, wants to be like him, starts becoming a coach, but eventually he sees him as a rival. Why is he getting the credit? I'm better than him. Eventually so much that he has to leave the team, start another team, and trash, Lasso and Richmond to set himself up against the kind of role model he used to have, because they want the same thing. Eventually there's a reconciliation, but there's this story in almost every story, somebody coming up and then having this kind of rivalry with somebody they had once admired. Or the person who's there begins to see the student as a rival and begins to get worried. Well, what if this person tries to usurp the throne, take the power? So you see this in societies and cultures. So, an example, take the story of a graduate student and her mentor called Dr. Jones. At first, the student models herself under Dr. Jones' career, reads all her articles, studies the same kind of things. The professor's kind of helping her out, but eventually the student becomes more successful. Dr. Jones begins to see her as a rival. Admiration turns to competition. Both insist they act from independent desires, while both unknowingly mirror each other. So Girard highlights how this rivalry, driven by unconscious imitation, can spiral into blame and betrayal. We often project guilt onto others rather than acknowledge our own complicity. So we get to the scapegoating mechanism. So when mimetic rivalries threaten group cohesion, communities often resolve the crisis through scapegoating, blaming and punishing someone to restore order. The scapegoat doesn't need to be real, only universally accepted. Once expelled or killed, peace returns, seemingly validating the scapegoat's guilt. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. People believe it's real, and then suddenly people kind of feel better. Must have worked, right? So throw in Jonah overboard. In the book of Jonah, somebody's to blame for this bad luck. We think about it sometimes, this person joined the group and now suddenly all these bad things are happening. You don't really want to see, but everybody's kind of thinking, Bobby should get rid of that person. Because we kind of think this way, almost unconsciously. Think about professional sports teams. Things are going bad, you got to find someone to blame, whether it's the coach, a player that's disrupting the locker room, the owner. If we can just get rid of that person, everything will be better. And often it seems better for a while. You fire the coach, the assistant coach steps up, they win a couple games, everything's great, but then things often fall apart again. We're always looking for a scapegoat, because the peace, when you get rid of the scapegoat, is deceptive. It's built on violence and a lie. So Girard found this pattern in myths from around the world. A crisis is resolved by a sacred murder, and the victim becomes both villain and savior. Culture emerges from rituals and taboos meant to repeat and control this process. Think of Antigone, the Greek myth. In order to sail to Troy, got to kill the daughter. It's in the Bible, Jephthah's daughter. All over the place, someone has to be sacrificed for there to be peace. So even consider Caiaphas in John 11. It is better for one man to die for the people than for the whole nation to perish. That is scapegoating in theological language. So scapegoating also shapes personal identity. We define ourselves by who we are not. Liberal versus conservative, believer versus atheist, good versus bad, Eagles versus Steelers, Michigan versus Ohio State, all these things. When we need others to be bad so we can see ourselves as good, we are engaging in scapegoating on an individual level. So often we try to create villains so we can see ourselves as the hero. It's like, I'm better than this person. I'm good. I can put all my anger and things on this person, this group. I wrote a sermon for next summer about kind of scapegoating, and I want to use this song by a guy named Ross King called Villain, where he kind of writes about, you want to find a villain to kind of make yourself feel good. You can climb up this hill of mud that you're slinging as long as what you're slinging is that a villain. You want to find somebody worse than you, and you can be the expert, get on the internet, get a big megaphone and shout from the rooftops, here's the bad guy. And you can feel yourselves better. We always are trying to find a villain, because it's kind of a sad state of affairs, but what connects people deeper is something you don't like than something you do like. There's a recent study on this, that if you want to have a successful first date, find something you both dislike and you trash talk it. That is actually as strong a cohesion of what you dislike than what you like. You might both like long walks on the beach, but man, you really hate this one book, or you really hate this thing. You draw bigger connections. Now that should be relatively telling of our society right now, right? But you draw, when you have a common enemy, people draw together. Anybody seen the movie Wag the Dog? Classic movie. There's a kind of a political scandal, so they need something to distract from that. So they create a fake war, a fake country, have all this outrage. And it's like, oh no, these are these bad guys. We got to stop this. So everybody's coming together as Americans. They forget the scandal because they have a villain. Now sometimes it happens authentically enough, right? You know, you have 9/11, everybody kind of coalesces, Democrats, Republicans on the steps of the Capitol, singing together. All that's good. But you have the villain, you start taking it further. And now you're bombing things when you don't actually have much evidence of it, because now people are excited to go after a villain. So they had to go after somebody. They couldn't say, well, we don't actually, it's kind of an interesting network. They had to attack something because people wanted the villain to be cast out. And then what you see happening is you had this rise of Islamophobia and hate crimes against Muslims because they are the enemies. Even so much happens to people who aren't Muslims but look like them. The Sikh religion with their turbans, they're not Muslims, but they get attacked because people assume, because there's the villain. And if we just get rid of them, the world will be better, we'll be at peace. That is what happens again and again. So from Oedipus to social media outrage, the pattern repeats. Conflict, scapegoat, peace, myth of justification. Girard's key insight is that this cycle can be broken if it is exposed. So when a community in the throes of conflict obtains peace through a violent expulsion of a scapegoat, they cannot perceive that it is their own unanimous voice which produced the peace. See, they're thinking this magical thing happened. Really, they all just came together against a villain, and it's their work that creates the peace, but it's the myth of the scapegoat kind of keeps it going. This blindness on the part of the participants with respect to what they were actually doing is killing an innocent victim or casting them out. It is one of the essential elements required for the scapegoating mechanism to work. Girard points out that to have a scapegoat is to not know you have one. In other words, participants in the scapegoating mechanism hold an authentic belief in the guilt of the victim, a guilt seemingly demonstrated by the restoration of peace. So we all have these scapegoats and we think we're doing what's right. It happens all the time. Each party has what they're trying to create is the scapegoating mechanism to keep people to think, hey, if we just get rid of these immigrants, these gang members, then we'll have peace. If we can just cast them out, everything will be good again. If we can just get rid of the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, well, then we'll have politics as normal again. We have to cast them out. Oh, if just Trump would be gone, if just Biden would be gone, he needs to get out. We have these scapegoats. We think if they just left, things would be good. And when we're the ones thinking, we never think it's a scapegoat. We think it's just true. Well, we have some citations here, some articles, some truth that show when these people are gone, when this person is gone, things will be better. We think they're scapegoating. We think we're doing the righteous work. To have a scapegoat is to not know you have a scapegoat. So you have to do some general, really introspection. Who are my scapegoats? Think to Germany in the 1930s. Most Germans, if you asked them, didn't think they were just doing the scapegoating mechanism. Hitler and the Nazi Party, for as evil as they were brilliant at what they could do to manipulate people and draw people together. There's one of the most famous Hitler biographers kind of wrote, if he had been killed in this assassination attempt in 1938, he would have gone down in history as the greatest German leader. Because he would have brought together Germany, Austria, the Sudetenland. Everyone was cohesive and coalescing. The nation was kind of like a one at that point. They would have ignored some of the bad things that were already happening at the time because of the unity they created. And you think about it, he's probably right, that biographer, because they draw unity. But people didn't really think they were scapegoating. They really thought these different groups were the problem. The communists were the problem. We just get rid of these far left communists, that's what's holding this nation back. Then if we get rid of the Jews and they're taking our jobs, they're pulling away the fabric of what our alien race should be, of what our society could be, they are destroying. If we get rid of them, we can be the Germany we were always meant to be. And people are like, yes, we want to be good. We want to be great. We want to take back this former glory. We want to be one nation. And all these groups are getting in the way. They think it's the right thing to do. The groups always think it's the right thing to do. We got to throw Jonah overboard. The rest of us are going to die. What's the point of all of us sinking when he's the one that brought this calamity? To have a scapegoat is to not know you have a scapegoat. So Girard thinks that the power of Christianity lies in the unveiling of the scapegoat mechanism. Here, unveiling is quite literally pulling back the curtain to see that behind all the smoke and sounds is just a small man pulling the levers. The Gospels have the same structure as myths, but an entirely different perspective, which is a key issue for Girard. In myths, we are given a scapegoat whose death promises both to heal fractured communities and appease the gods. In the Gospel story, we gradually learn that God is the victim and that the victim's blood only appeased humans, not God. Having a real event told in this particular way intends to foster conversion. Though we think of the Gospels as telling the story of God, Girard follows Simone Weil in showing that the Gospels are as much about us humans as about God. And the true power of the story or the conversion lies in the permanent alteration in the way we read not only the Gospel story, but everything else. Instead of reading through a sacrificial lens, we read through a forgiving lens, realizing that both on an individual and on a social level, we've been involved in a multi-generational process of victimizing and expelling others, and that God has nothing to do with this kind of violence. You can go back in history over the decades, you will identify, you can see in history which groups are deemed the bad ones we have to get rid of. Sometimes it's the big corporation leaders. If we just got rid of all these fat cat corporations and just had these small mom and pop shops again, then we'd be good. That's one myth. If we just get rid of these immigrant classes, if we get rid of the black people, if we get rid of the Chinese, if we get rid of the Irish that came in, every time there's a group, if we just didn't have them, things would be good again. And both sides do it. They call it the other side. They think when they do it, they're just speaking the truth. Because again, we're blind to where we are at in the process. But the gospel has the way of when you really look at that and you let it be your lens back to your life, you see, oh wait, I'm doing it too. In the end, Girard points out the ultimate scapegoat is Jesus, who through his unwillingness to perpetuate this hate-fueled cycle of violence, willingly accepts death on a cross. But the message of Jesus is clear. All are deserving of God's love. All are beloved children of God, and no one deserves to be scapegoated. This revelation isn't just about theology, it's about us. When we begin to see how we participate in the cycles of blame and exclusion, we can stop them. The message of the cross is not just that God suffers with victims, it's that God refuses to play the game of vengeance at all. So Jesus came, Girard argued, to reveal things hidden since the foundation of the world. Now we see them clearly. We may still sin, but we're no longer blind. As Jesus says in Matthew 9:13, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. So we need to stop sacrificing others for our peace, for our prosperity, for our upward mobility. You can do a lot more interesting classes on this. I have a sermon next summer that I'm excited about, but I got to wait over a year for it. But it kind of looks at what happens in Germany, what happens in the Bible, and the Hebrew understanding of the scapegoat. The idea is in the Hebrew Jewish scapegoat, you put all the sins on this one goat and you send it out. But whenever we do that, what really happens is we tend to send out our own humanity, our own respectability, our own integrity. We often think we're getting out the worst of society. What really is happening is we're sending out the best in us. That's scapegoating. Questions, comments, scapegoating remarks? Go back, read some more mimetic theory. Like I said, it's like a whole college course in 15 minutes. You get a teaser of it, though. All right, thank you very much.